Hi, everybody. I'm George, and this is the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And today's guest is one of the hosts of the super fun double feature podcast, Nashville, CA, and a baker extraordinaire under the name Sean of the Bread. Please welcome Sean Perry.
Hi, George.
Hey.
How's it going, bud?
Doing great. Very excited to have you back on, man. This was a really, really fun movie, so we're in for a treat.
Yeah, last time we watched Jason 2, but this time we went all out.
Yeah.
I have never seen anything quite like this movie.
It's very unique, and I'm excited to get into it. But first, let's talk about where it all started for you.
I remember watching Stephen King's It on VHS when I was like 7 or 8 years old across the street at my neighbor's, and I got so scared, and we only watched the first tape, and then everyone went to bed, and I was just like sitting there in the dark. All my friends are asleep, and I'm terrified, like anxiety riddled. And so we watched the second tape in the morning, and the second tape is so much dumber than the first one. The first one's like, the first half of that movie is like scary because there's kids involved. And then the second half, it's just like adults fighting a giant spider, and I don't know what. So I hated horror movies after that for a long time. Like the only one that Josh and I covered on our podcast was Tremors 2, was about the only one that I would stand. And then I watched Dawn of the Dead remake in theaters when I was like 17 years old or something, and that kind of kicked it off. Then I got into The Thing, then to John Carpenter, and then from there, man, it just started going on down those lists of like the 100 best horror movies ever made and all that stuff. So yeah, it's been about 17 years for me as a horror fan.
Putting in the time. I respect it. And yeah, it's funny that Stephen King's It was the thing for both of us that really scared us.
Oh, really? What was your experience? Because I had like serious sleep trauma for a while after watching that movie.
Yeah, I was, it was like a school trip to Washington, D.C., and so I was in a hotel room with a bunch of other, like, middle school-aged boys, and it was on TV. Like, it was just, like, on one of the stations, because it was late at night, and so we were all like, oh, we're gonna stay up late, and we're gonna watch this. And the first thing that happens is a little kid named George gets fucking murdered. I was like, this is too much. I'm fucking out of here, dude.
The George in this movie doesn't fare much better.
I know. Big rip. It's a curse to be named it in movies, folks. You're going down.
The Big George lobby is not strong in Hollywood.
I'm changing that. Me and George Lucas are changing that. So I want to talk about your show for a little bit because I really like it. And it's you and our other pal Josh, who was also on the Friday the 13th episode. And I'm sure that he will similarly make his way here solo as well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the process. You know, you guys do 2 movies every episode. How does the decision-making process happen? Do you decide on, like, a theme that you want to explore and you each bring a movie? Do you go back and forth and one of you suggests a movie and the other one just kind of matches it? Like, how does that whole thing shake out?
Yeah, so it's usually one of us will just watch something and be really passionate about it, or we rewatch something and want to talk about it, and then the other will bounce back. So, for instance, I love Session 9, and it scares the bejesus out of me still. It's one of like the only movies that gets under my skin. And so that was my proposition to Josh was, all right, what's a movie that really creeps you out and gets under your skin? And so he chose Noroi, The Curse. And that was a wild, weird documentary-style movie. Really cool, though. And then same with guests. When we have guests on now, which we just had our first, we let our guests pick the movie, and then Josh and I will kind of discuss it and figure it out. But we're not always on the same page, because recently we both saw Pig in theaters. Really good. Go check it out.
Yeah, I loved it.
But when we were talking about, what would you pair that with? He went with, it's like a restaurant movie. It's One Night and something. I can't remember.
Big Night.
I believe you're correct. Yeah, I think that's it. So he went with that, and I went with Winter's Bone. Which was so he was into the food side of the movie, and I was into like a character getting dragged into the murky underbelly of like a kind of criminal enterprise.
Sure. Wow.
So we're not always eye to eye.
That's funny. Wow. Well, I will say this: people should definitely see Pig because that movie fucking ruled.
Yeah, it was awesome. I also just saw Old recently, and that was really fun. That just
I still got to see it. I'm excited to, though.
wild, mind-numbing Shyamalan kind of movie.
Hey, man. Philly boy. You know I got to get out there and support him.
I read the comic it was based on, and he did a good job with it. It's a good story for a Shyamalan movie, so check it out.
Nice.
Just leave your expectations at the door.
Speaking of Alex Wolff, you know, we were just talking about Pig. He's in Old, too.
Yeah,
right?
that guy's having a big week in theaters.
So, outside of the context of your podcast, I'm curious what you think makes for like the ultimate double feature in terms of, you know, pairing it around an actor. Is it like the thematics of the movie, the setting? Like, what is it that to you is the ultimate through line that helps you determine what a great double feature would be?
My best example, and I think our favorite pairing that we've done so far, is when movies provide commentary on each other, kind of, or one informs on the other. And so one of our first episodes was Stalker, the Tarkovsky movie, and Annihilation, the Alex Garland movie. And in a lot of ways, Annihilation is kind of a remake, not quite a remake, but heavy homage to that movie. So that was really fun to approach basically the same story from two completely different perspectives with Tarkovsky and Garland, and kind of pull apart the differences and the things that were the same. But it also just unified like what the idea of in both those movies the zone is. It's like this mysterious world, and they paired up really nicely, and they actually, I think neither movie contradicted the other.
Well, first of all, it was a great episode of your show, but also both of those movies rule, and I think that there is a lot of similarities that they share in a really great way, and in terms of what they're trying to communicate about human nature as well, I think it tends to line up pretty similarly, I would say.
Yeah, and I know you're huge on Solaris, and I have yet to watch it, because for me to hit play on a Tarkovsky movie, like the planets have to align, and the weather has to be just right, and my mood has to be just right, because it's tough, man. It's tough to commit to a Tarkovsky movie, you know?
For sure, they're heavy. They're a heavy time.
But then I watch stupid TV for 3 hours easily. So what am I doing with my time, George? I don't know.
Hey, man, you put creativity in, you're going to get creativity out. That's what I always say.
That is a good segue into this movie.
So we're talking about Ravenous, which is from 1999. It's a really interesting Donner Party influenced like Western movie. I'm curious what you would pair with this for a double feature.
Oh, that's a tricky question, man. Because right off the bat, my brain goes to something like Alive, which is just harsh take on cannibalism, but that's not that fun.
I'll let you think, and I'll say what
Please
mine
go.
is to start us
Yeah.
off. And I'm going to say that I would follow this up with a palate cleanser of Buster Scruggs.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be really cool.
I feel like this would just be one additional part of the anthology.
Yeah, because this Buster Scruggs definitely has some stories that have a weird tone.
Yeah, that death one at the very end where they're all in the carriage and everything.
What was your favorite one in Buster Scruggs?
I mean, I'm a Tom Waits boy through and through. I loved that Prospector one.
I loved the Prospector one. It's like what Michael Mann does best, when people are very skilled and talented at a specific procedure, and so then you just watch somebody do something that they're really good at it, whether it's rob a bank or find a gold nugget.
So true.
So that was awesome, because I love when movies, I feel like they educate me even though I'm thoroughly entertained.
All right, pressure's on now. What's your pick for it?
You know what? I'm going to go with another campy, kind of survival woodsy one. I'm going to go with The Edge. Anthony Hopkins and one of the Baldwins. I can't.
The main one.
I can't keep that zany bunch in line, man. They all mixed together in my head.
Whichever one you're thinking of, it's not that one.
That's so true. Seriously, right now. Is it Stephen Baldwin that's in Biodome?
I've never seen Biodome.
Yeah. Have you seen any Pauly Shores?
No. I mean, I've seen a Goofy movie.
Yeah, I think that might just be the minor age difference between us. I think might be the Pauly Shore line.
It might well be. I think Stephen Baldwin is the one in The Usual Suspects.
Okay, because I always thought that was Billy Baldwin.
You know what? You might be right. I'm not going to look it up. We're not looking it up,
No,
folks.
I don't care.
So you can just say your favorite subgenre, but I thought it might be fun to ask, what's the double feature that sums up your taste?
Oh, man.
I'm really holding your feet to the fire here.
I think with my personality, I'm really silly, but then I also like depressive things. So I think it's got to be something like Naked Gun to lead off, followed by, I don't know, something preposterous like Melancholia or something.
Wow, I love that. Oh, that's great. I think that's you to a T. Yeah. But yeah, so like I said, the movie we're talking about today is 1999's Ravenous. Super fun, very unique movie. I don't think that I've ever seen anything like this before. And it's the kind of movie where I was saying to you off the air that I had heard about it and I had seen like the synopsis flying around, but reading the synopsis just totally doesn't prepare you for this movie because there's so much more going on than text can convey, I think.
The synopsis makes this sound like this could be in the line of Dances with Wolves.
Right.
Like the synopsis reads like it's just a straight down the middle movie about, adventure and peril in the 1840s.
It's a trip, but I think that it's incredible that the end result of what we got is as good as it is because this movie had a really troubled production. The story goes that right before production, the original director, Milcho Manchevsky, was like, hey, studio, here's a bunch of new storyboards, and I'm going to need another 2 weeks for shooting. And they negotiated down to another week after Manchevsky basically went on strike and refused to even meet with the producers at Fox 2000 after they were looming over his shoulder to micromanage, hiring cast and crew that weren't who he wanted. But finally, after a work stoppage where the negotiations spilled over into the production schedule, they gave him the week. So good for you. Solidarity.
I've never heard of this guy. I checked his filmography, and I've never heard of any of his movies either.
Yeah, me either. And I'm sure that he probably got blackballed a little bit after this. But
this sounds like a production that's not quite on scale of Island of Dr. Moreau, but close to it from the beginning.
And, the studio wasn't making things easy. Overly notated dailies, including complaints about the minutia, like the amount of dirt on the costumes was something that they specifically were pointing out. They also demanded constant rewrites, keeping Ted Griffin, the screenwriter, like right there on hand to be constantly pumping out new stuff. And a few weeks into shooting, the tumultuous relationship reached a tipping point when the producer, Laura Ziskin, showed up to the set with a new director. She was like, fuck off, Milcho. You're out of here, bro. And Raja Gosnell was the new director that they were going to put in.
Who had only directed Home Alone 3 at the time. Wow. And even as a child, I knew Home Alone 3 was trash.
That was the one. Everyone was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with Robert Carlyle, and it's like, when that director showed up, they're just like, no, this isn't going to work.
Yeah, the cast was like, this sucks, you're wrong. And they refused to work with Raja. Robert Carlyle, who you mentioned watching this interview, he plays the main antagonist of this movie. And he wound up suggesting his business partner, Antonia Bird. He was like, she should come on, she should be the director, as like a third party who isn't like a representative of the studio, basically. And she came on after 10 days of negotiation. So a lot of pushback, tight schedule on this movie for sure.
That lack of prep for her is preposterous. And so that makes the results of this movie kind of both make sense to me of how bizarre it is, but also like it's unbelievable that she was able to get this because she also was not a film director, really. She was primarily a live theater director.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, this was such a bad experience for her that she never directed again, in Hollywood at least.
Yeah, well, she showed up and she was like, oh, I get it. I understand why Milcho was so fucking miserable. She said it was awful. The studio space was horrible. Their schedule was manipulative. And she was explicitly like, do not blame Manchevsky for being the issue here. So
I wonder if they were in Slovakia or in Mexico when that production stalled out.
Probably Mexico, right? I feel like
Mexico had a lot fewer of the lead actors. So maybe you get the wheels turning, shoot the Mexico stuff first with Guy Pearce, and then bring everyone else into Slovakia.
That sounds right to me. But I think that the movie has helped along to still be as good as it is because it's a really solid cast. Guy Pearce is in the lead role of John Boyd, and he is really good in this. He's from LA Confidential, is his like big movie that most people know him from. But this, he is so like, he doesn't talk for like 25 minutes in this movie.
No.
He is in like shock the whole time. There's this real like feeling of him being on like the cusp of fight or flight the entire time.
Yeah, he's just, for the first 15 or 20 minutes, he kind of just has a 1,000-yard stare on him.
Yeah.
And clearly nobody can understand what he's gone through.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's like, I can't believe you did this. And he's like, it was fucking hell out there.
This movie is so loaded with character actors because you got David Arquette. Let's just mention Jeremy Davies. He sucks. He's a piece of shit. He's a decent actor, but fuck that guy.
So too, Jeffrey Jones.
Oh, sorry, not Jeremy Davies. I meant Jeffrey Jones. Sorry,
I don't know
sorry,
anything about
Jeremy Davies.
but...
Oh no, I just threw dirt on Jeremy Davies' name. Jeffrey Jones is the piece of shit. Sorry, everyone. Oh god, I love this guy, Neil McDonough. You know Neil McDonough because his eyes have burned a hole into your soul at some point in your life.
That's absolutely correct.
The man has laser eyes. It's unbelievable. I almost wish sometimes in post they would like turn his eyes down a little bit. They're that distracting to me. It's the reverse of Cameron Diaz. Always asked to make her eyes bluer and bluer in post for those movies.
Yeah, they're the opposite ends of the spectrum. We've talked about those guys, but the aforementioned Robert Carlyle turning in an absolute heater of a performance.
He's so good in this movie. He's good in everything, but he's one of those men that's just... I think the Scottish accent helps him, and so they made such a smart decision in this movie to just write him as a Scottish immigrant so he can keep that wonderful accent and rhythm that he has. Yeah. He's so good. I love him in Trainspotting. I still contend that the intro to 28 Weeks Later is one of the best horror sequences ever.
He's so good in this. He's so charismatic. And he's also very creepy in it, which is hugely important because so much of the atmosphere of this movie really hinges on him.
Yeah, and also his chemistry with Guy Pearce. And having not seen Guy Pearce in too much stuff, he's usually pretty reserved, so I feel like Carlisle's kind of pulling it out of him, because if you see Memento, I mean, rightfully so, but Guy Pearce is really playing it subdued and keeping his cards close to the vest in that movie. Yeah,
definitely he is. We got to make sure that we point out the music of this movie. It will come up over and over again, but the music is a co-production between Michael Nyman, who is a commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, for his work in both film and opera.
Wow.
Yeah. So this guy has put in the work as well. And Damon Albarn, lead vocalist and lyricist for Blur and head gorilla from the Gorillaz. So it's this really interesting blend of modernity and classicism that I think it permeates the entirety of the movie in terms of the style of it, the way that it's shot and everything. But I think that it really starts with the music.
The music is everything in this movie. It would not work with a traditional score. Something wouldn't add up. And it's because the music is disjointed. It has that modern with that classic. But then also you get odd timing sequences in some of them. You can tell that some of them are like a tape loop that Damon Albarn did, and so you just get like this accordion loop that's a little 4-second loop, and then you get classical layered on top of that. The thing I love with so many of these songs is that it feels like they were either playing to the edit or the edit plays to the movie, but either way, there's so many times in this where the music swells and swells, and then when the music gets to its absolute biggest point, there's a big reveal or some big shit happens in the movie. And so it's so cool, man. I love this music so much. The reason I love this movie so much is because so many times when we watch movies, we're exposed to mediocrity or producers who aren't willing to take a chance on something. And so, especially with a big budget, this had $12 million budget, so that's nothing to sneeze at. So to take a risk like this, and this movie takes so many risks, that it completely jumps over mediocrity. And it's a very polarizing movie. You either, I think, are really affected by this movie, or you're not on board with it at all. But I think it would be hard to be lukewarm with this. And I think that's a sign of really good art.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you're right about the pieces of it kind of work in conjunction as far as the edit and the music, because I noticed in particular that it also extended to the sound effects as well, and the way that the sound editing played in as well. You know, when he goes to show his shoulder, there's like the big crash of thunder to like punctuate his like reveal. And it's like, okay, I see what you're doing here.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of little cues like that throughout this movie that are really funny, but also build into the atmosphere.
So this opened in March of 1999. Never really had a chance because it was sandwiched in between Analyze This, Forces of Nature, and 10 Things I Hate About You and The Matrix. So those are some heavy hitters.
Oh no! I mean, this movie is already impossible to market as it is.
Yeah.
And then you add in The Matrix and Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro. Oh god, not a chance.
Never stood a chance.
The $12 million budget, $2 million return is a bummer.
Yeah, big time flop. Like you said, $2 million, just over on it. And unfortunately, that polarization did come into effect because the critical reception was pretty poor. I did check in with Raj, who actually liked this one. Although he did, as usual, he was unable to just pay it a straightforward compliment. He said, the film setup is more fun than its payoff, but it's the kind of movie where you savor the texture of the filmmaking, even when the story strays into shapeless gore. So,
can I say, thanks, I think you're...
Thanks for nothing, Raj.
As a fan of this show, who I frequently listen to, I think you're a little hard on old Raj, man.
No way.
What?
No way. He knew what he was doing.
Come on, man. Poor old Roger Ebert. He's just, read his reviews with a grain of salt. Come on, George. Lighten up.
Get some taste, Raj. Get some taste.
God. Don't be so Philadelphia, man. Come on. Be California. Relax.
Philly till I die, baby. Philly till I die.
I know.
So let's get into the actual movie.
Please do.
I think that you get this incredible tone setter right away because it opens it opens with a quote from Nietzsche that says, "He that fights with monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster." Classic Nietzsche, stare into the void, it stares back kind of
right
thing.
Off the bat, I'm like, this is an art house movie. This is going to be like some serious metaphor about the human condition. You know, this is going to be a serious movie.
And it lingers there for a little bit, too. And so I thought the same thing. I was like, okay, all right, we're going with Nietzsche. It's a big swing. And then it's followed up by Eat Me, Anonymous.
Oh, if you're not on board with that, you're probably never going to be on board with this movie.
Yeah. You know what? I respect the hell out of that. Cut your losses. Just be like, you know what? Set it up nice and early so that people know if it's for them or not. And then we can all go our happy ways.
And like you said, that comes in, the Eat Me from Anonymous comes in with a big slamming, like a big judge's gavel sound effect kind of thing.
Yeah, at the beginning, there's a lot of like very emphatic thuds that happen. When the actual title shows up as well, something very similar happens.
Yeah.
But we join John Boyd during the Mexican-American War, and he's being promoted to captain for infiltrating enemy ranks to capture a command post. This opening scene of them eating steaks is just like the most disgusting food scene I think I've ever seen.
Do you have food problems in movies? Because I have really bad food problems with movies.
I mean, I definitely get grossed out. I'm never like, oh, I can't watch this, but I'm like, oh, that's fucking disgusting.
This one wasn't that bad, because I think this one was just a lot of shots of like knives cutting up steaks on plates and stuff.
It was the noise, though.
No, it's... Don't do that, George. I'm about to throw my headphones across the country into Philadelphia and hit you in the head with them. All right, the word, like my nightmare scene is in one of the Lord of the Rings movies where it's like the Mad King is eating tomatoes and shit, and it's just oh god, it's the grossest thing. It makes me, when movies use mouth noises of like antagonistic characters or whatever, like to emphasize how evil they are, it drives me up the wall. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves.
That's incredible. Well, you picked a hell of a movie for that, man.
Yeah. Because right after this, the title card, we get some good old puking.
Classic. I mean, he's having flashbacks of the grotesquerie of combat, and the stakes are reminiscent of the ground soaked in blood. And then, yeah, he runs off and he pukes, and the title slams into place right next to his head.
Summons the title card with his vomit.
Yeah.
And, but let's go the opposite way. Puking, I can watch puking all day in movies and not be affected in the slightest.
Well, I respect that. The general says he's no hero because of the method that he achieved this victory, which involved pretending to be dead in a fit of terror mid-battle and laying down and then eventually sneaking out of the pile of bodies.
Yeah,
I think whatever fucking works, right?
Yeah, I've always... What's that book, Red Badge of Courage or something, where a kid runs away from the war? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, kid, run away. There's no shame in that. Like, get your ass out of there.
War sucks, in my opinion.
Oh, dude, if I was drafted, I am going to Mexico or Canada. Like, fuck that. I am not any part of that. But yeah, so there's a guy yelling, "Boyd, help me!" And he just lies down in the sand and just goes face down.
Yeah, that guy yelling, "Boyd, help me!" I don't know what he really expected from Boyd over there.
Yeah, whatever he expected, it wasn't that.
It wasn't. He was like, "Oh, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted, was for you to lay down." But so the general sends him off to Fort Spencer in California as sort of an exile. This place is run down as hell. It's up in the snowy Sierra Nevada mountains and run by Colonel Hart, who is played by Jeffrey Jones. And Colonel Hart seems like a nice enough guy, but he warns Boyd that this place thrives on tedium, which that is hell.
I love this part because as he's giving the kind of Fort Spencer exposition history, what life is like here, the background music sounds like 12-year-olds playing their instruments. So it's a bunch of out of tune, out of time violins and cellos and stuff trying to play, and it just sounds like children. And it gives you such a feel for like, okay, this is not efficient military outpost.
Right.
This is just like a broken group of men out here just scratching by.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're exactly right, because he tells them about the rest of the gang, which is a skeleton crew on account of the out-of-the-way nature of the fort. So there's that going on. But then you also get Private Toffler, who is way into God, Major Knox, who's a drunk, the warrior, Private Reich, who is Neil himself, Neil McDonough. And his little intro is so fucking funny with the quick scream in the cold water. It made me laugh out loud so hard.
That hard cut gets me every time because he clearly got ripped for this movie. So Neil McDonough is jacked, standing in a freezing river, screaming with his laser eyes, going mad. I love it. I love that cut so much.
It's very funny. And then you get George and Martha, who are Native American scouts that were there when they arrived. Martha is quiet, and George has been known to smoke the pipe with Private Cleaves. So can't relate to that.
Just know that David Arquette, who plays Private Cleaves, is going 100% this entire movie. It's like if Dewey were high off his ass on opiates or whatever from Scream, were then transported back in time. This is what this character is.
Yeah, he's perhaps a bit too fond of smoking, they say. And we see at dinner that night that they are not exactly the best of pals, this motley band here.
No. That's kind of a scary thing, is being trapped in the wilderness with 5 dudes, and it's like, what if you all hate each other?
Yeah.
I could easily see how you get, like, camp madness, especially in the winter months, if people end up just going crazy and killing each other and stuff. It was a tough time, man. Those westward expansion people, good on them, but that was brutal, dude.
For sure. Martha and Cleaves head off on a supply run, and while Boyd and Hart chat over a drink, they're surprised by someone outside the window. And this happens pretty early on, and so I was like kind of surprised by it as well. Like, they look out the window and all of a sudden there's just someone there, and I was like, ooh.
Right before this, I had a question for you. We see a little flashback of Boyd, and he's under like a dog pile of bodies, and he talks about the blood from his major dripping down his throat. Have you ever been at the bottom of a dog pile, and do you get claustrophobic?
I have not ever been at the bottom of a dog pile because I am a big, heavy guy. So I am able to flip people over usually.
There you go. Are you claustrophobic?
I do also not really get claustrophobic. I mean, you would think that I would be, again, as a bigger guy, but it doesn't really hit me that bad.
Playing sports as a kid, there was like 1 or 2 times where I was on the bottom of a dog pile. And even just for like a split second of just being smothered under a pile of human beings, it's terrifying.
It's scary. I can imagine it being scary for sure, especially, you know, the situation that he's being put in around it certainly seems like it would have already been pretty stressful, to say the least.
Yeah, and so, like you said, Carlisle shows up. Robert Carlisle does. And that's just like right as this movie is starting to feel a little bit slow with this intro, Calhoun, as we find out later, Calhoun shows up, and all of a sudden this movie is taking off like a rocket.
Yeah, he collapses out there from the cold and frostbite, and he gets brought inside. And when he awakes, he reveals himself as Calhoun, having been part of a wagon train when Colonel Ives, promising a shortcut, instead takes them on a path that traps them in the snow for 3 months. Classic shortcut, am I right?
Yeah, and he wakes up in a jacuzzi next to an open fire indoors in a snowy cabin. So he wakes up in like the coziest place in the world under a bunch of like heavy fur blankets and stuff. It looks, if it weren't life or death situation, it looks like a really nice place to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. He explains that when they were trapped out in the snow, they quickly went through the oxen, horses, and even his dog. And then one day, while he was very conveniently for him out collecting the wood, he returned home to find them cooking up the person who just died of malnourishment. Now, let's talk about this. Do you remember that foot taco guy?
No.
Oh, man.
The fajitas?
I mean, listen, I'll talk about fajitas all damn day. But
No, what's foot taco?
So this guy was in a motorcycle accident, and he lost his foot. And he got the doctors to give him his foot back. And because he had always said that he would only eat human meat if it was ethically sourced, it doesn't get much more ethically than your own. And so he took this meat home and he made it into foot tacos. And there are pictures of it all along the way. It's fucking disgusting to look at. And it was the kind of thing where I had always been like, yeah, I bet that if it was, like, handed to me, I would do it. And then, like, when I was really confronted with the idea of this guy eating his own foot, I was like, this is, like, the grossest shit I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Don't eat the foot. Like,
yeah, it's not good meat.
Because I'm with you. I've always been of the same camp of, like, if push came to shove, I would eat somebody's butt. You know? But a butt,
sure.
A butt, a thigh, a calf, those are all money. Bicep,
yeah,
not a foot. What are you getting from a foot? Just stringy tendons.
That's what he had. I think that's why he turned into tacos, is so he could, you know, chop up the meat a little bit and
what if
put it on something.
What if he burned the meat? Wouldn't that just be a bummer of an experiment? Just he fucked it up in the pan and it caught on fire.
Starts looking at the other foot like. I love that after Calhoun describes their descent into cannibalism, he goes, then things got out of hand.
Yes. I love then things got out of hand because that's when the movie really, or the music really kicks in. And it's like, oh, what do you mean that's when things got out of hand? Because now they all have a taste for meat. And it sounds like they're eating far beyond what they need to be eating. Pace-wise.
That's right. They say that the hunger got more intense, and he said Ives in particular got crazy and started murdering people to eat them. Calhoun fled in an act of cowardice that speaks to Boyd.
Just like 28 weeks later, man. Once again, Robert Carlisle, coward in all movies.
He's got a look.
He does play afraid really well.
The men gather supplies to go out searching for Ives and the woman that Calhoun left behind. George, however, warns them about the Wendigo myth, that people who eat other people can steal their strength, getting stronger and stronger, but that the hunger is demonic and insatiable.
I noticed you said wendigo. This movie hits the wendigo, and I don't know what's correct, but every other thing has said wendigo that I've seen in media. But this says wendigo, and I think that sounds better. So I'm a wendigo man, personally.
I respect it.
I like this part because they asked George, like, oh, do native people still do this? Do they still consume flesh? And he's like, oh, white men do it every Sunday. Burn.
Fucking got your asses, guys.
So I'd say this is a good point to mention. Two heavy allegories, I'd say, in this movie are the consumption of flesh in a Christian sense, and then the consumption just of the land and of the West by Manifest Destiny and Westward Expansion. Yeah. So those two things are definitely... And then some heavy homoeroticism, I would say, are like the three major themes that kind of carry throughout this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Wendigo/Wendigo myth. I think that it's a good, and it's spooky, and it's kind of vampiric in a way. There's like an element of vampirism to it, and like the stealing their strength thing, and the intense hunger pangs. They had a little bit of their day in the sun, so to speak, with Until Dawn, which is a game that I like a lot that deals with the Wendigo storyline.
I played that. It was good.
It's fun.
I was really frustrated with how some of the characters were behaving, though.
That's on you.
No, it wasn't.
You choose how they behave.
Sometimes I would choose an option, and then my character would argue things in a way that I was not wanting him to argue things. And things would get out of hand, and then people would split up and storm off, and you shouldn't do that. And that was a fun game, though.
I don't know, man. Sounds like you should get better at the game.
Yeah. I guess so, probably.
But they leave Knox in charge, and they head off. And it's goofy, and these like fun goggles that they all have. They're all like wearing different kinds of goggles, and each one is sillier than the last.
And this song, as they're leaving, it goes from like this beautiful string quartet that's like these swelling strings, and it's absolutely beautiful, to then someone on like a ukulele playing the Oh Susanna riff. And that's like the music is so discombobulated in this movie. I love it. Because it's like, it's this weird blend as they're going on this trip. It's like comforting and beautiful as they're walking through nature, yet it's still like the music is lonely at the same time. It's this weird mixture of warmth, yet isolation and loneliness that I get from the soundtrack. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that it definitely speaks to the content of the movie as well. You know, I think that plays right into what's happening on screen. Which is, that means that the music is effective.
These goggles in this sequence are amazing.
Yeah.
Because, like, Carlisle's goggles look kind of steampunk. Guy Pearce's, they look like owl eyes. Like, some of them have almost, like, fur or something. Everybody looks
they're fun.
So goofball. Later on, when Guy Pearce is having a full-on conversation with Robert Carlyle, and Carlisle's wearing those goggles that make him look like he has bug eyes for the whole scene. It's just...
He's Bono.
Just cracks... That's... Wow, you're so spot on. That had heavy Bono influence, I think.
Toffler, also wearing his goofy goggles, finds a bone, but he also falls down a cliff. So... win some, lose some, I guess.
Yeah. So Reich jumps down to help him out, and I don't know if it's just a trick of the camera, but where these two actors are on the side of this cliff, it looks legitimately dangerous.
Yes, definitely so. And he does not fucking hesitate. He like fucking runs for that shit, hops right off.
I really hope that Neil McDonough was in character for this whole production. And so he is just like that intense guy sitting off in the corner, fashioning weapons out of sticks and shit.
Well, they do have to make camp where he can make some of those stick weapons because Toffler is quite injured on his side there. That night, maybe my favorite scene. I mean, there's a lot of great scenes here, but the delivery when Toffler freaks the hell out that night because he was licking me. Oh my god, friggin' Calhoun has like blood on his lips like a freaking jabroni. He's been sucking on his side.
He was licking me! My favorite part, sick man outside!
Yeah.
I don't know
oh, man.
what Toffler is played like a man-child or something. Toffler seems like he has like a 12-year-old's personality. It's very strange, some of the acting decision. But that guy, he only plays meek characters, because the other thing I think of him from is Saving Private Ryan. He's Oppum, the guy who was like the cowardly soldier, if that's how you want to look at him. But yeah, this scene is awesome, and he was licking me, sick man outside. That has stuck with me for a long time.
Reich goes to kill him, like, immediately, which would have been the smart move. But Calhoun pretends to have been having a nightmare, and he's like, oh, bind me up, I insist.
Yes, bind me up. And so, yeah, as they're walking away the next morning, George tells Boyd that he thinks Calhoun's a wendigo.
He tells him, straight up, Georges always know.
As they approach, they start to get closer to the cave, and this is where the music is like, boing, 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 boing. It's the most bizarre. It feels like a child's music box or something, but it's broken or it's out of tune, or it just feels sinister in a very like fantastical kind of way.
Yeah, and it's very tense as they approach this cave. I mean, again, the music doing its job, because when Reich and Boyd go to explore, Calhoun is like fucking with Toffler outside.
Yeah, Calhoun starts by being dragged there, and he looks absolutely terrified to be anywhere near the cave. And then I call it finger dancing, because I don't know what else you would call what Robert Carlyle's doing outside, but as he starts to ha 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 ha, and he's like, I don't know if he's getting overcome by the Wendigo spirit or if he's psyching himself up. I don't know what's happening there, but I know that I love it.
It's going great. And while that's happening inside, Reich stumbles across a skeleton crew of his own, if you catch my meaning, in that there are literally skeletons there.
I like at this point, Reich, there's a cave inside of the cave. And so Reich and Boyd look at each other like, who's going first? And Reich basically mocks him of like, I'll go first, Captain, or whatever. And then as he's going down the hole, he's like, hey, would you mind not pointing your rifle at me? So it's just this great moment where like a true soldier is mocking this guy who just got promoted just to get kicked out of a situation, you know?
Yeah, it is really funny. And I like Reich, it's interesting because it's very easy for that kind of character to be really antagonistic in a way that is off-putting. But I think that Neil McDonough does a great job of playing this character with enough relatability and humanity to him that it doesn't come across as off-putting, and he does just feel like someone who knows what he's doing and is actually prepared, and like it feels disappointed with the situation that he's in because he is a soldier.
Yeah, he does not seem like a terrible guy to live with in an isolated base. He doesn't seem like that type of like, I'm thinking of in The Abyss, the Michael Biehn character, the Navy SEAL who slowly starts to just lose his mind and become a complete dickhead to everyone. Or Day of the Dead, as you recently talked about on this show. Same kind of character that you might expect. But yeah, no, Neil McDonough plays this with a little bit of heart. Just enough to know that there's something there.
Yeah. And he counts the corpses, and he realizes that Ives is among them, and that this was a trap all along, and Calhoun, in fact, is the one who killed everyone.
And Calhoun is clawing at the dirt like a dog.
Dude, I was just going to mention this. So fucking freaky. It's so animalistic. It's incredible physical acting.
It's awesome, because he looks like he's just losing his mind and maybe just trying to like dig a hole to safety or something. Who knows what he's doing. Toffler's freaking out. Hart is there yelling into the cave. The music is swelling. This is the part of the movie where it's like, I'd say this is the highest peak of tension in this entire thing. And we see that Calhoun gets a knife from the sand pit that he was digging.
Oh, man, it's great. And I actually went back and I watched this scene twice because I was like, are they speeding up the footage of him digging? Like, that's how intense he was. And I don't think that they were. I think that he is just going freaking nuts over there.
I think that's just what you get with Carlisle.
Yeah, man. He goes 110% every time. And he gets that knife and he quickly stabs Hart, and he uses Hart's gun to shoot George. Rip to my name, pal. We hardly knew ye.
Ironically, he stabbed Hart in the stomach.
Wow.
Could have stabbed him in the heart.
So true. So
true. Edit that out.
Well, maybe I would have if you hadn't said that.
George throws a hatchet at him, and Calhoun uses heart as a body shield and kills George. Poor guy.
Big rip.
And this is where the movie throws the biggest curveball I think I've ever been thrown musically in a movie. Because the soundtrack stops, Calhoun goes to shoot Toffler, and the gun jams. He goes, "That's so annoying." And he takes off his goggles and jacket, and then looks at Toffler and goes, "Run!" And then the music, it's like a fiddle song, and it's like, what the hell is this Benny Hill yakety sax chase through the forest sequence?
Incredible is what it is.
I agree.
Because friggin' Boyd and Reich aren't far behind either. So it is quite the Benny Hill chase scene here.
My favorite part is you think it's over, and so Reich and Boyd are sneaking around in the forest, and then they see Calhoun, and Calhoun yells at them, and the music immediately comes back on, and the chase is back on, and we have the silly Benny Hill music again. It's like, oh, I love this so much.
Yeah, well, and when they find Calhoun there, they also come across the gutted Toffler.
Yeah, there's a lot of evisceration in this movie.
There sure
is. A lot
is.
of open bellies.
Yeah. Hey, easy way to just stuff some fake guts in there, and everyone looks dead.
That's fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where Reich shoots at Calhoun, and Calhoun seems to either just not worry about it all at all, or dodge the bullet. But one way or another, there's something going on. And this next part, Boyd wants to retreat. Boyd's just like, can we just go home? And I thought it would have been really funny if right now Boyd just lay down and pretended to be dead again.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. Maybe it would have worked. You know, I hear that Calhoun is like a T-Rex, and his eyesight is based on vision. So, or based on movement. Everyone's eyesight is based on vision.
I wish more things followed T-Rex rules.
Yeah, I agree that this should be instituted. Famously, Wendigos operate on T-Rex rules.
I'm for it. Let's get a change.org petition going.
But yeah, so he wants to retreat, like you said, and Calhoun is not letting him go anywhere. So he just fucking jumps off the cliff, takes the lead.
So Reich got hit with a throwing knife, and Reich fell off the cliff, and then Boyd's like, there's no way I'm gonna fight you. Yeah. So see you later, dude.
Toodaloo.
And this was a cool shot, because it looked like they actually had somebody jump off the edge of this cliff in real
scary
life.
As fuck.
That, I don't know if they had an air pad. Like, I didn't see anything about that stunt, but it looked intense, whoever did that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
By the way, there should be stunt Oscars.
Yes,
Oscars
I agree.
for stuntmen.
Big time
Make it
agree.
happen, George.
All right, you know what? You've convinced me. I'll write to the Academy.
Yeah, you're a pushover, man.
But Boyd does survive. He hits a tree.
Hits every branch on the way down.
He sure does, and he suffers an awful-looking compound break in his leg in the tumble, and Reich's body tumbles down too. There is a little bit of a scuffle, but Reich winds up being dead.
I read that took 4 hours only to shoot that entire hill tumble sequence.
Holy shit.
Long. They did that in 4 hours.
Wow. I can imagine that they wanted to get it fucking over with.
Yeah. It at a moment I was like, is this gonna be like They Live, where this fall is just never ending and they're just gonna keep rolling and rolling and rolling for like 3 minutes? Yeah. So Reich gets strung up upside down.
Yeah.
And Boyd's leg is broken with the bones sticking out through his pants.
Yeah, gross.
Yeah. So Carlisle is out looking for them. Boyd does the classic movie thing of biting on a stick, because that is just as good as anesthesia.
Sure.
You bite on a stick, you can survive anything. And resets the bone in his leg.
I did really like the satisfied smirk that Reich had on his corpse while Boyd is in pain there. Like, he's like, well, I'm dead at least, and you're still fucking struggling here.
Yeah. Neil McDonough has been dead for like 48 hours, but his eyes are still open, and they are still lasers into the sky.
Right. And Calhoun can smell the blood. So he's out there too. You know, everyone is
Calhoun's sniffing around.
It's just like
there's
a
funny
very
hard cut. Sorry, when there's when he's fucking around with his broken leg, there's a hard cut to Arquette chopping wood.
Ooh.
And I always like that in movies where you get something really terrible about to happen, and then it hard cuts to the same sound effect, but on a completely mundane scene.
Yeah.
That's always a fun little trick that editors do.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And they're just in this like neutral zone. Like nothing can happen really. They are just waiting each other out because like I said, Calhoun can smell the nights turn into weeks. I like how they handled this. You know, the moon shots and the quick scenes of people just doing errands and like goofing around. I think that it's a very well handled way to like communicate the time passing.
Yeah, I like that Calhoun, at one point you see like dragging Toffler's body into the cave, and you can just hear him giggling.
Yeah.
And later you see him just sitting by the edge of the stream, eating what looks like a calf, leg bone or something. Just Calhoun's having a great little vacation for a cannibal.
He's loving his life out there.
He's living it up in the Sierras, man.
So eventually the hunger gets so bad that Boyd does in fact eat Reich to stay alive. And earlier, Boyd and Calhoun had been talking about like what happens when you eat. Like, did you feel the vitality? And that vitality that Calhoun spoke of sure does come back, and he manages to not only drag his ass out of that pit, but limp his whole way back down to the base as well. And I'm gonna finally call out some of this music as well, because this is, I think, where the two sensibilities are really in like perfect sync here. It's like a little bit electronica-y as he's limping his way home, but there's still very much like the classic old-timey music playing. I think that it's a really spectacular like moment of triumph for him.
This song is called Boyd's Journey, and it's awesome. It's like everything that I love about this movie. This is the one that, of all the songs that like get stuck in my head from this movie and have just like wormed their way into my brain, this is like the main one. I really like that he's worried that he's going to consume Reich's soul when he goes to eat him. He says, "You're dead, you're safe. I have to be able to eat you." And so I like that throughout this movie, Boyd struggles with the morality, which is basically what Carlisle is trying to teach him to completely neglect and to just live for himself.
Yeah. He does find, however, when he arrives back at the base, that it's been taken over by the general from the beginning. And Martha tells him that the only way to stop a Wendigo is to kill it. That there is no just going back and not being a Wendigo.
Yeah, I like the idea, it only takes, it never gives.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you mentioned earlier about vampires, I think that this is cool and different. The hunger seems to grow exponentially with the Wendigo, whereas vampires seem to kind of have a plateaued feeding rate.
Sure.
This seems like you just need more and more and more every step of the way.
Right, unceasing. The second group goes to the cave, and they find nothing there. And the general advises him to change his story, while the new colonel walks in, and why, it's Colonel Ives, except it's Calhoun, wearing Toffler's cross, no less.
Yes. And of course, the only person who was a witness to Calhoun being there is Knox, who was so blackout drunk that he remembered Robert Carlyle having like a full bushy beard or something. And so I love this part though, because when Calhoun walks into the room, Boyd does like a fainting goat move. Like he turns 180 and just collapses to the ground and is in a little puddle hiding against the wall. And just like, it's him. It's him. It's like, oh, Guy Pearce, that was awesome, man.
It's very funny. He really takes a swan dive there.
Yeah. And up next we have the shoulder examination, which, if you want to talk about the homoerotic tones of this movie, seeing Robert Carlyle poke both of his shoulders out for everyone else to inspect and look at. I like that it shows how long it takes for him to disrobe. He has to take off a belt, to take off his waist sash, to take off his giant jacket, to take off the sash around his neck, to take off the suspenders, to take off the shirt.
People's attention spans were longer back then.
I guess, man.
They didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
What else did they have going on? It was either fucking watch someone disrobe for 20 minutes or go to the fucking saloon.
Drink or play cards, that's about it, right?
Exactly, and that's why Knox is friggin' so drunk all the time. And they do this reveal, and the wound that should be there is not. And there's the crash of thunder for dramatic effect, like I said. Very fun.
Yeah.
Boyd is starting to really experience the hunger again, and he fantasizes about killing and eating Cleves while also descending into paranoia, keeping a knife close at all times.
Boyd gets that knife by walking into a room with Martha and Cleves, and he says, I have to warn you. Consider yourselves warned. Yeah. Do you need this? And takes a knife. You can't just say, I have to warn you, and then not say what the warning is. That's not warning someone.
I don't know, man. They sound pretty warned to me.
Yeah. That daydream, I'm never that crazy about dream sequences,
sure,
character, any stuff like that in movies. It always feels a little
cheap.
Yeah.
If they're gonna do it, they at least used it to be like, here's another like gore scene.
Yeah, but seeing Guy Pearce eating David Arquette's guts as David Arquette is laughing maniacally does make it a little bit sweeter.
That's right. You know, there are worse executions of it.
So this next scene, it feels like a rainy day at school. Because everyone's in the same room in front of the fire. Some people are playing chess. Some people are reading.
Boyd's some people are cheating at chess.
Boyd looks like full-on opiate withdrawal now at this point in the movie. He's looking awful.
He's struggling for sure. And when Calhoun like drops a book or something, he freaks out and he jumps up and he has his knife out and Martha is ready to stab Boyd.
Yeah. Look at Martha right on it, dude.
Yeah, she's in there.
Martha was up faster than any of the soldiers.
But Calhoun isn't worried. And he talks to Boyd that night and he reveals that he discovered what was left of Reich and indeed finished him off. He also gives his backstory of how he started cannibalizing for real, which is that he had tuberculosis and the wagon train was going to a sanatorium because he had all kinds of other like maladies and he was depressed and had suicidal ideation. And the native scout told him about the wendigo, and so he, quote, just had to try, and it cured him, lo and behold.
Well, and of course, he immediately kills the scout who tells him about the mythology.
Right.
Talk about a backfire.
Yeah. Yeah, that guy was like, his last thought was like, I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah. And so at this point, I wasn't positive if Calhoun caused his company to get diverted. But the next thing he says is, I ate 5 men in 3 months and walked out of there happier than I've ever been, healthier than I've ever been.
Wow. He's living his best life.
He is. Oh, and at this point, he almost looks like Dracula because his hair is like beautifully elegant and combed back, and he has this like real suave black jacket on, and he's clean looking. And Robert Carlyle now looks just so handsome, and like you get a feeling for the regeneration that's happening with him and with Hart later.
Yeah, I mean, even just the way that he speaks is much more confident.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he questions Boyd about why he stopped and dismisses morality as the last bastion of a coward.
He sure does.
Which, obviously, that's the kind of thing that is going to rancor with Boyd, or draw rancor. And so he slashes out with this knife, and the blood raises the memory of the hunger for him, urged along by Calhoun. That said, Martha does save Calhoun, and Knox wants Calhoun to arrest Boyd, as we see the same flames that he saw when Boyd first ate Reich, now stoked and raging along. So, a little nice visual similarity there.
I love when Calhoun holds his bloody hand up to his face and is mocking him with it, and he says, don't you remember the feeling of a man's strength pulsing in your veins? Oh, hello. In an interview, Robert Carlyle said, from the beginning of this production, he read his character as not only does he want to eat Guy Pearce, but he wants to have Guy Pearce as well. And you feel it, I think, more and more the closer we get to the ending, the more of a link these guys have, almost in like the Hannibal TV show, like the Will and Hannibal relationship. Like by the end of these things, you don't know if these guys are going to make out or murder each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it definitely comes through. It's not surprising to me that it's deliberate, because there is a lot of homoeroticism going on, and there is a lot of sort of like double entendre work and like these long like stares across the room at each other and everything. It's very deliberate.
There's some longing eyes in this movie. Mm-hmm. Martha's looking for Cleves, and Calhoun is getting his hand tended to by Knox. And this is where Martha finds the decapitated horses in the barn.
Right, and they all blame Boyd, and Knox quickly knocks him out.
Well, yeah, and she goes to tell Knox that the horses are dead, and this is when the blood is dripping down from his window, and we see that Cleve's body has also been eviscerated once again. They probably used the same effect, the same prosthetic. They just keep reusing it in this movie, probably.
Hey, man, it worked twice.
Yeah, and we see that poor little David Arquette is no more in this movie.
Big rip. I love the reveal, though, as the blood drips down onto her face. That was very effective.
Oh, and it's not just like 2 little drops.
Right.
She gets about a half pint poured on her face. It's Carrie-esque.
I was laughing really hard, but also not surprised when I read that they ran out of fake blood by the end of the production. Because they are really liberal with the use of it in this movie.
Yeah. I wouldn't say this is an excessively gory movie, but it's definitely bloody.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, even just when he's, like, under the pile of corpses in the beginning, like, he's like, oh, yeah, the blood was, like, running down to my face into my mouth. And it's like, yeah, it's friggin' pouring down on him. Very bloody.
Yeah, the way he says it was pouring down my throat. Like, I couldn't spit it out or anything. Somehow, it was just straight passageways down the gullet.
Yeah. That was where he became a Wendigo, really. It all started there.
So they send Martha on foot to go get the general and tell him what's happened. And Calhoun goes to visit Boyd, who's chained up, and gets some of his blood, Boyd's blood, from like a bloody nose or something on his fingers. And Calhoun essentially tastes his 2 fingers in such like an erotic way that's like, holy cow, this is Red Shoes Diary or something.
Dear 1800s penthouse, I never thought it would happen to me. Unfortunately, though, Knox is soon dispatched. Although not by Calhoun. Who should it be but General Hart, brought back from the brink by eating people with Calhoun? And they like Boyd, and so they want him to be their pal because they've got big plans for the base.
There's a real great cannibal pun before Knox gets killed, where Knox asks, can I help with the stew? And Carlisle goes, perhaps you'll contribute later.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a classic cannibal joke. I bet they all had real big smirks on their faces. They sat around eating that stew. I bet Carlisle was like, did you guys hear what I said to him?
Did you even hear? That's so funny. They also, speaking of that stew, Guy Pearce is a vegetarian. So they were like, here's this lamb stew. And he was like, oh, I don't want to eat this. And so he would just like chew on it and then spit it out for several takes while they did this.
Oh, that sounds gnarly.
Yeah, good commitment, Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hart, he shows up again and they're like, we're going to take advantage of Manifest Destiny to cannibalize passers through. But they need a select group of people to be in on it to make sure that they can get away with it. And they're going to convert General Slauson as well. And I love that while he's telling Guy Pearce about this plan, Calhoun asks Hart to take over butchering Knox's body. And you can see, if you look at him in the background, that he's totally like feigning it, like doing absolutely nothing. Like, I don't think that that's a Jeffrey Jones thing. I think that that's a character choice, that Hart is like, I'm not a butcher. Like, I'm not fucking doing this shit. And I think that that also plays into his willingness or his unwillingness to live as a cannibal, which comes into play later.
Oh, that's cool. I did not pick him up in the background. Yeah, because Hart basically talks about his death was drowning in a black void, and then there was nothing. And he woke up and Calhoun was already feeding him. So he never opted into this. And so he kind of seems like he's excited about the idea of cannibalism for about 12 hours.
Yeah.
And then when the reality of things kind of set in, and Guy Pearce reminds him of like, don't you remember all the guys that were like serving here and they're all dead now?
Right.
Yeah, Guy Pearce essentially breaks him.
It's an interesting moment, especially to not have any attention really drawn to it. But Boyd continues to resist. Oh, this is also, there's some really good music playing during that scene as well. But Boyd continues to resist. Calhoun stabs him and says, hey, you can eat and live, or you can die from this stab. And I also laughed about that stew having just like whole ass potatoes getting ladled into the bowl, like not chopped up or anything. I was really laughing about that.
Hey man, if you're not eating potatoes like you eat an apple, you're doing it wrong.
I guess I'm doing it wrong. There's some more great tunes here, though.
Boyd looks like Boyd looks like a zombie at this point because he's literally like spitting up blood, but there's like chunks of stuff in there, and he looks awful.
Yeah, he sure does.
This is where the music swells and it builds, and then right before he eats, the rhythm starts to go faster, and so like you feel once again the tension that this music is capable of bringing, and it's really great moment that builds up to his choice to like, I need to live through this. If I'm gonna stop them, I have to eat this.
Yeah, and he does exactly that. He heals and he gets jailed so that he can put on this show for the approaching reinforcements. But Boyd convinces Hart to free him so that he can kill Calhoun. And Hart's only request is to be killed quickly so that he doesn't have to live this way anymore. A nice out for Hart. I like this character arc for him.
Yeah, and I thought the blood spray onto the window was cool. It made it look like a piece of stained glass. So when Calhoun approaches, we see Calhoun through the stained glass, seeing what's happened, and realizing that his plan is probably going to shit because they kind of need 4 guys to get this cannibal family up and running.
That's right. But also, I agree that it looks very stained glass-esque, but the windows already like had like little bits of other colored glass in the corners that I thought were really interesting, and so it felt like the blood splashing onto it felt very natural for the look of the windows already in a way that I thought was cool.
This is one thing I could not find information on. I was wondering if a lot of the money and the budget went to building this set, because it's a full-on village. I mean, I'm sure a lot of those buildings are just exteriors, but still, the interiors are really impressive. It looks expensive. I don't know if they shot the interiors in studio or out on location, but still, all of this set design and production is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's great looking. Calhoun ambushes Boyd, but they both manage to stab each other. And Boyd has the upper hand for a while here, and he beats the hell out of Calhoun. This is a really fun fight scene, but then they go to the ground, and that's where he makes his mistake.
This reminded me of, like, They Live. So, yeah, Ives drops through the roof and hits him with a log. Boy stabs him with a pitchfork. Ives stabs him with a dagger from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Raphael's dagger. Boyd hits him on the forearm with a butcher's knife. Boyd beats him with a log. Calhoun stabs him in the back with the dagger. Like this, they're just trading vicious blows back and forth. Yeah. No pun intended.
They got that cannibal strength.
And right before this, we did see Boyd walk into a barn and eye a gigantic trap.
So true.
Which we will soon. I have many questions about this. But I love when Boyd finishes this fight, he lowers his shoulder into the pillar that's supporting the roof and just drops the roof on Calhoun.
Hell yeah. I mean, brilliant move. Unfortunately, Calhoun does arise from the rubble, but it's smart. And he single-mindedly pursues Boyd, who then, shoves them both onto a huge bear trap that closes on them.
Yeah, so they're right before they're holding each other, and like Calhoun pulls the knife out of Boyd's back and drops it on the ground, and they have this embrace where they're both 6 inches apart, eye to eye, looking at each other, and it's this real interesting moment of like the connection of these two men, and maybe the love, or I don't know what is there. But there's definitely some kind of bond between the two of them.
Yeah.
And then we get Boyd drops him onto the trap, which swings down. I've seen bear traps. I've seen fox traps. Is this an elephant trap? This thing's radius is like 3 foot radius.
It's specifically for humans. He just had it.
It's like, but normally, like you catch somebody in the lake. This would catch somebody, like half of somebody's body would be caught in this trap. It's bizarre. So it's as this shit's happening, Calhoun says, "That was sneaky."
It was,
and he says, "If I die first, I'm gonna eat you. But if you die first, what are you gonna do? Bon appetit."
That's some good shit right there. What an outro. You got to go out with a fun line.
A funny little cutaway. At this point, we see that the general is back in camp, and he's nosing around the stew, and he starts sniffing the stew.
Oh, man.
And then, wouldn't you know it, fucker eats the stew.
Loves it. He loves the stew. This guy. That's some real bad news. Where's this sequel? with the general in charge.
I don't know. Unfortunately, I was reading the actor's last
That's right. He perished.
last role. John Spencer, who was on like The West Wing and stuff. You definitely recognize him. I always think of him as one of the guys in The Rock. He's like one of the guys that Sean Connery hates, and he's Womack. How's your bowling arm? He hangs Womack over the edge of a building by a string when he's getting a haircut.
Classic.
I don't know if have you seen The Rock?
I have seen The Rock. It's wonderful. I'm a
good.
big Nick Cage guy.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the end of the movie. The general is eating his stew. Martha stumbles across
Calhoun
Boyd
says-
and the now dead Calhoun.
Calhoun says, "Eat or die."
Yeah.
And then with an exhalation that's about an 8-second death breath,
Death rattle.
finally dies. And then the song kicks in. That
Ooh,
same
it's
song
so
that
good.
you talked about earlier, Boyd's Journey, kicks in again. Martha sees them and turns her back, and Martha's like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here. I am done.
She bails.
with these white assholes. Get me out of here." And Boyd chooses not to eat Calhoun, but to instead die in his embrace with his head on his chest like he's listening to his heart.
Beautiful.
It's a really sweet, really beautiful death.
Absolutely. It's wonderful. And it's a really fantastic movie. And now, Sean, we've reached the point of the show where we sum up why it's not just a really, really great movie, but is in fact the best horror movie ever made. And I'm going to let you start us off.
This is the best horror movie ever made because it took courage from the actors' performances, from Robert Carlyle saying that of Antonia Bird that she would encourage actors, it's okay to make mistakes. I've got your back. Just let your performance come to life. And I think that's where her theater background came out. And this movie I can feel a lot of passion in this movie. I can't believe that the production was as flawed as it was. That the acting, it's such a wonderful cast of great character actors. The music is incredible. Some of the most disjointing, bizarre stuff where the first time I watched this movie, it was almost too weird for me. It was recommended to me through a forum or something, and it was like, I don't know, that was like the part where like the music kicks off into the fiddle and they go in the Benny Hill chase scene. I was like, this is too much. But then it stuck with me. And then I showed it to like my brother-in-law and I was like, okay, I think I love this. And now I just keep watching this movie. It's in my brain. I listen to the soundtrack frequently. Like just as I'm driving around town, I'll pop on the Ravenous soundtrack.
Wow.
It's in my head. And I just, in a way that not many movies can do. And that's why this is the best horror movie ever made.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. I think that this is the best horror movie ever made because it's wholly unique. It requires everyone to be really on board with what's happening in terms of the actual like cast members and everything. Obviously, the production and the studio was not quite as on board, but the fact that it does take so many chances, that it has this interesting blend of classic and modern that permeates the entire movie. It's in the way that the movie is shot. It's in the way that the performances are given. It's in the music. It's in the editing. It's such an interesting blend of these two time periods, and I love this setting. The Old West is, fascinating, and a lot of bad shit went down, and so I like when it's not as glamorized, and when you see these people like scrapping for their lives every step of the way. I think that it just all really comes together in a way that's incredible. The fact that it does manage to succeed with having so many things trying to pull it down, I thought it was great. This was a movie that I hadn't seen before, but I definitely will be revisiting. I can see it already.
I'm so thrilled that you're into this because, like I said, this is a real polarizing one for me to show people and for me to get behind. And I have an odd passion for this movie, and so I just speak about it too much and too highly, and so I try not to set people's expectations too high because I know like this just is so perfectly in tune with whatever weird frequency my brain operates on. It's like the same that this movie operates on. if people haven't seen this movie, or if you just want to listen to like the some of the best music I've ever heard in any movie, there's 6 songs. They're all on YouTube if you just look up the Ravenous soundtrack. They're Boyd's Journey, Calhoun's Story, Trek to the Cave, Run, Manifest Destiny, and End Titles. I would like End Titles to be played at my funeral service one day. That's how much I like that song.
Wow. Well, we'll definitely include a link in the show notes, so if you're listening right now, you can check that out and listen to that music after the episode, because the music is great. It's really great. I think that really ties that music really tied the room together, man. Sean, this was so much fun, dude. Thank you for introducing me to this movie, and please tell everyone where they can listen to your wonderful podcast.
Yeah, please check out Nashville, CA, like Nashville, California. It's me and my buddy Josh. He lives in Nashville. I live in California. Go figure. And it's available wherever you can get your podcast. And we have our next episode about Session 9 and Milroy coming out soon. Talked with George. I think we're going to get him on in the next month or 2 and record an episode. Yeah, just keep an eye out. We're pretty new. We're only about 6 episodes in, but we're having a lot of fun. And we are very long-winded, with many episodes going well over 3 hours. So if that sounds like something you're into, and we don't, part of the thing that I like about the show is we don't rip the show. I think that's why I like your show so much too, is that it's easy to just rip things apart, but to find the goodness in things and to find the things that you key in on,
hell yeah,
I think is more challenging and more rewarding.
Yes, totally agree. And I totally agree that you should all check it out, especially if you have 3 hours to kill, because it's great.
Well, thank you so much for having me, dude. I really appreciate it, and I love your show.
Well, it was a joy to have you, my friend, and I look forward to coming onto your show as well. But as far as my plugs, you can find the show on Twitter at Little Horror PHL. You can find the Patreon, which is also Little Horror PHL. There's all kinds of bonus episodes and stuff. We just released the second mailbag episode, which is Patreon exclusive. And we got some really great questions in there, including some about Philadelphia itself that I answered. So people can check that out. And rate and review if you're enjoying the show. Send more mailbag questions to bestlittlemaiLbag@gmail.com. I think that's everything. There's merch out there. Whatever. Who cares? Oh, one thing that's exciting is that we're coming up on episode 100. So we got something very exciting planned for that I am really looking forward to personally. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but just know that it's good. So look forward to that. Thanks, everyone. Bye.